Balmoral unfolded like a reel the royal family has played for generations, a pale Highland morning, deep green slopes, sparse woodland paths, and the first sound not of camera shutters but of hoofbeats, steady, rhythmic, like an old clock running again. Locals say they saw the three Wales children, George, Charlotte, Louis, in proper riding attire, helmets fastened, gloves neat, following an experienced stable hand while Prince William and Princess Catherine stood back on the grass verge, speaking quietly to the head groom. No ceremonial fences, no invisible wall between them and the Highland estate. Two residents from cottages near the outbuildings noted the session lasted longer than usual. Louis seemed attached to a small light-colored pony, Charlotte kept her pace steady and silent, and George was given a few more technical maneuvers on a gentle slope. Sources familiar with the family's routines insist this was more than a summer pastime. The riding schedule was tightly structured, slotted between afternoon walks and short lessons in royal estate history. A long-serving staff member said the family rhythm was returning to a pre-2020 format, fewer devices, more open air, children handling their own boots and tack. One detail stood out: several saddles had been refitted, including a vintage style once used at Windsor for a young Queen Elizabeth II, a quiet nod to lineage. In a news cycle still occupied with speculation about the family's future residence, from their settled life at Adelaide Cottage to possible relocation to Fort Belvedere, Balmoral suddenly emerged as a soft reset. An education advisor said this year's emphasis was discipline, timekeeping, small responsibilities, care for animals and equipment, a balance of skill and enjoyment. It showed in how Catherine remained on the sidelines, letting the children complete their final movements before removing their helmets, and how William refrained from correcting mistakes, instead prompting George to find his rhythm after a sharp turn. Balmoral riding lessons have been a press staple for decades, from childhood images of the Queen, to Princess Anne and Zara Tindall on the competitive circuit. This time, however, what mattered was the absence of staged moments. No photographers, no arranged shots, only scattered accounts from hikers passing on a woodland track. "I heard the hooves before I saw them," one local said. Steady as breathing. The phrase sounds poetic, but it matches the impression shared by long-serving aides. The family is pulling the heart of their life back into steady, quiet rhythms, hard to showcase but built to last. A member of the estate's security team added that the protective bubble had thinned, more flexible, fitting a schedule shaped by Highland weather and the children's own impulses. Not loose, but designed for spontaneity. Balmoral, bought in the Victorian era, has always suited this style: climate, terrain, history, and distance combined to allow the family to blend in as temporary locals, light on ceremony, heavy on breath. No one announced a ceremonial riding day. It was a normal lesson. But in the Highlands, the real royal rituals have never needed a microphone. They are sewn into the leather of the saddle, stitched into the hem of riding gloves, tied in the knot of the stirrup strap. Princess Anne knows this as she knows the back of her own hand. She has walked this path, kept this pace, felt how a child is placed, without praise or medal, through the gap between them and the leader, through the order of a formation no one calls aloud. Balmoral is a school of silence. Here, Catherine teaches without speaking. She stands at the grass edge, letting Charlotte's glances find her, not for permission, but for confirmation. Here, William doesn't lift a child from the saddle. He lets them wrestle with a small curve of fear at the bend, because after the bend comes a long straight with wind in the face. Here, George learns the steadiness of pace, no showing off, no rush, and Louis learns to bring his pony back to the stable on command, not whim. These lessons aren't printed in the court circular. They echo, faint but far. Camilla hears them from another residence, where a cup of tea cools faster than expected when the mind stays in the Highlands. She is not jealous of a riding session, she is unsettled by how it is run, without debate, without agenda, without performance. The most dangerous shifts in royal power never come with coronations. They come when a child learns to turn a horse without being told twice, and when the mother stands still, not waving, not calling, letting the child feel that true authority comes from holding your own pace. And makes no statement to the press gallery, she simply adjusts where she stands. This morning, she was one pony's length closer to Charlotte, enough for the photographers to miss, enough for those fluent in protocol to notice. The lesson was not about speed, it was about the discipline of riding second, about the art of holding formation. A longtime groom swears she said only one thing, quietly, as the children led their ponies back, helmets first, then talk. The command sounds small, but it defines a reign that lasts, ritual before conversation. Catherine remains silent. In RS tradition, silence is not absence. It is weight. The weight that makes others speak for her, through positioning, through who stands where, through which gesture is made when. One aide recalls Charlotte passing her mother on the return walk. Catherine did not touch her, only tilted her shoulder slightly to give way. A small gesture, but a declaration of method. You clear your own path, I only clear the space. Elsewhere, budgets and estate repair proposals still circulate. At Balmoral, the lines are being drawn in hoofprints. Children's lines. A family choosing to drill formation before discussing crowns. When the session ends, there is no applause, there is the soft clink of a helmet strap on a hook, the smell of sweat and leather. Outsiders will forget these details, dynasties will not. The morning after the unusually long ride, the internal schedule was compressed, gear checks, a short woodland loop, and an early return. A source says the change wasn't due to rain but to purpose. The day was for backstage structuring, the children indoors with Highland maps and the history of the Balmoral stables. The grooms adjusting tack for younger ponies. Charlotte shown an old handbook describing the riding formations of royal ladies during the hunt, the sort of document rarely seen outside because it belongs to the language of the backfield, not the front lawn. The BC lens records the surface, early lunch for the children, Catherine reviewing the September task list, William conferring briefly with aides about school visits. The RS layer runs underneath, and reversing the afternoon route to pass a still slope, an old test for balance, Camilla quietly ordering past Balmoral riding records, not to imitate, but to search for a fault line in this year's discipline, somewhere she might insert herself. What she found, ironically, was consistency. One riding log entry read, Charlotte in position 2, holds pace, slows at marker, does not cut corner, returns on, hands down the command. Dry words, but in RS code, position 2 is not second best, it is the place beside power, where precision matters more than spotlight. George, sent on the longer path, was not favored, he was tasked with proving his pace could be kept by those behind. Later, a small detail emerged, William clearing a few scraps of leather in the tack room himself. Not dramatic, but in keeping with his way, repair, restore, return things to ready. Elsewhere, Charles received an unsigned note, children held pace well. North Glen Field usable again. No extra cars needed. Part logistical, part political, fewer cars mean less noise, fewer fences, less stage. Dynasties survive longer by staging less. By evening, Balmoral returned to calm. The family left the paddock in deliberate order, helmets hung, saddles cleaned, no ruts in the track. An outsider might ask, will they ride again tomorrow? RS would answer differently, tomorrow is irrelevant, what matters is today's set a pattern tomorrow need only repeat. Windsor's old rule of endurance, stability is built not in grand decisions, but in reliable rhythms. As Highland night fell, the lights in the stables clicked off in a sequence everyone knew. Out on the grass, the track lay flat, as if the long ride had never happened. That is how enduring stories hide themselves, no trace, only skill. And if anyone wonders whether today was an event, both BC and RS would give the same answer, no, just a lesson. But also a foundation. And foundations like this, at Balmoral, almost never crack.